On June 12th, 2025, Air India Flight 171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, suffered just a catastrophic crash. The impact was immediate, devastating.
Yeah, it really was. We're talking 241 out of 242 people on board lost their lives.
And that's not all. On the ground, at least 38 more were killed. It brings the confirmed number right now to a truly heartbreaking 279 people.
Just staggering numbers.
It is, and this is still an unfolding story, very much so. Our mission today is really to give you the clearest picture we can of what happened. We're pulling insights from our sources.
Okay.
So for this deep dive, we're going to unpeel the layers. We've got details from Air India Flight 171, crash and investigation, and also a key news update from India's Daily Pulse, dated June 17th.
Good sources.
We'll look at official investigation details, preliminary findings, eyewitness accounts, even some expert speculation. But first, let's just set the stage. This wasn't just another accident, was it? It's significant for some very specific reasons.
Indeed. And that's why this deep dive is so crucial. This is the first fatal crash and the first hull loss involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
The first. Wow.
Think about that. There are over 1,100 of these planes flying globally, long-haul workhorses. And until this, none have been involved in a fatal accident.
Incredible context.
It is, and the official investigation is very much ongoing. No definitive cause has been pinned down yet. That's exactly why looking at all the angles, understanding these early findings is just absolutely key for aviation safety everywhere and, of course, for everyone affected by this awful tragedy.
Okay, let's unpack the core facts then. This incident, it just unfolded with terrifying speed. We're talking Air India Flight AI 171, registration BT-ANB, a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner.
Right.
It was flying from Ahmedabad, India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, heading to London Gatwick in the UK, June 12, 2025. Happened about 1:38 p.m. local time.
Okay.
On board, 230 passengers. That included 11 children, 2 infants, plus 12 crew members. So 242 people total on the aircraft.
A full flight, basically.
Pretty much. And their nationalities, it really shows the global connection. 169 Indian, 53 British, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian. The crew, we know the captain, was Sumit Sabharwal, 55 years old, very experienced, 8,200 flying hours. First Officer Clive Kunder, 32, with 1,100 hours.
So a mix of deep experience and newer experience in the cockpit.
Exactly. And tragically, only one survivor from the plane itself, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, 40 years old, a British national of Indian origin. He was in seat 11A near an emergency exit.
Or near an exit, yeah.
He actually reported hearing a loud bang and seeing lights flicker just before the impact.
A bang. That's significant potential evidence.
And the impact on the ground, just as devastating. At least 38 people killed when the plane hit a doctor's hostel, other buildings, residential area. 4 medical students among them.
Oh, terrible.
It brings that confirmed total as of June 17th to at least 279 deaths.
Unbelievable.
The sequence of the crash itself, it was horrifyingly fast. Took off from runway 23 in Ahmedabad 1:38 p.m. It only gained about 625 to 650 feet in altitude. Just seconds.
Barely off the ground.
Barely. Less than a minute after takeoff, the crew issued a mayday call, that universal distress signal.
Yeah.
But then, nothing. No further communication.
Silence.
Yeah. And there's verified CCTV, even mobile phone footage. It shows the plane struggling to climb, nose pitched way up, landing gear apparently still down.
You're still down. That's unusual for that stage.
Very. And about 30 seconds after takeoff, it stalled. Lost lift, either not enough airspeed or, wrong configuration. Then it just descended rapidly, about 475 feet per minute.
Breathe down, practically.
And crashed into the Megani Nagar residential area, only about 2 kilometers, like 1.2 miles from the airport.
So close.
It hit a doctor's hostel, student quarters at BJ Medical College and Civil Hospital, and the plane had nearly full fuel tanks. We're talking maybe 125,000 liters.
Oh, wow.
The impact ignited this massive fireball. Multiple explosions, thick black smoke everywhere, debris scattered over a 200-meter radius. The immediacy, how fast it all happened, it just underscores the scale of this.
It really does. And looking at the human element, the names, it makes you realize the ripple effect. How swift disaster just hits a community and beyond.
Yeah.
Our sources mention specific people, and it's poignant. Vijay Rupani, former chief minister of Gujarat, was on board.
Right, I saw that.
Entire families, too.
Yeah.
A family from Gloucester, a London family of 4, a consultant radiologist from Derby with his wife and 3 kids.
Oh, my goodness.
There was a cabin crew member, Singh Sin, apparently the sole breadwinner for her family, and an engaged couple, Hardik Avaya and Vibhuti Patel, heading off to celebrate.
It just puts faces to the numbers, doesn't it?
Exactly. The sheer number of lives on the plane, on the ground, it's a deeply personal, tragic cost.
So now the detective work begins, piecing this incredibly complex puzzle together. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the AAIB, they're leading it.
Right, the lead investigators.
But it's a big collaborative effort. They've got assistance from the U.S., NTSB, UK investigators, Boeing naturally, and FAA technical support.
Standard procedure for a crash involving a U.S.-made plane, especially one of this significance. International cooperation is key.
And they recovered key evidence remarkably quickly. The flight data recorder, the FDR, one of the black boxes, records thousands of things: performance, engine thrust, controls. They found it within 28 hours on a rooftop near the site.
28 hours is fast.
Yeah.
Very fast. That's crucial data.
And the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, which has the pilot communications, ambient sounds, recovered a few days later, June 15th.
Okay, so they have both now.
Both. They're being analyzed right now to reconstruct those critical final maybe 30 seconds. One was apparently damaged, but they say it's still usable.
That's good news, relatively speaking. Even damaged, they can often extract vital information.
And the preliminary observations from the investigators, they paint a stark picture. Airborne for only about 30 seconds, max altitude 625, 650 feet, then that rapid descent.
Confirms the timeline.
Verified video shows the landing gear down and, this is important, wing flaps possibly not extended, which is highly unusual for takeoff, right? You need flaps for lift.
Absolutely critical for lift at low speed. If the flaps weren't configured correctly, that could lead straight to a stall, especially taking off.
And the plane's nose-up attitude, combined with just not climbing, it strongly suggests a stall.
Classic stall indications, yes.
The Mayday call confirms the pilots knew something was critically wrong right away, but the lack of anything further suggests they had no time. No time to recover or even explain.
30 seconds is almost no time at that critical phase of flight close to the ground.
So the investigation timeline, they're saying a preliminary report, maybe 3 to 6 months, so September to December 2025.
That sounds about right for a preliminary, just the basic facts and initial findings.
The final report, though, with the definitive cause recommendations, that could take 1 to 2 years, maybe 2026, 2027.
Yeah, these things take time, meticulous work.
But crucially, decoding those black boxes, they expect pivotal insights within weeks.
That's the key short-term goal. The FDR and CVR data will likely provide the first solid clues about the sequence of events.
And in response, India's DGCA, the aviation authority, they moved fast. Ordered safety checks on Air India's entire 787 fleet. That's 33 planes.
A significant move. Grounding or checking an entire fleet type isn't done lightly.
They also put in one-time takeoff parameter checks for all Boeing 787s starting June 15th. Plus, power assurance checks for the fleet began 2 weeks after, and Air India has to do extra maintenance inspections too.
Right, zooming out a bit, those rapid safety checks, the DGCA's actions, they're really telling. Our sources say over 80 flights have been canceled since the crash because of these inspections.
Wow, 80 flights. That's disruptive.
It is, but it shows they're taking potential systemic issues very seriously. It's not just about this one crash. It's about ensuring safety across the whole fleet, the whole network.
It raises a big question, doesn't it?
It does. How quickly can the insights from those black boxes actually shape safety protocols? Not just for Air India, but globally. Setting new precedents, maybe.
Okay, so this is where the detective work gets really complex. Sifting through all the possibilities. And it's so important to remember, like you said, no official cause confirmed yet. But let's explore what they are looking at.
Yeah, a main lines of inquiry.
One major area. A potential wing flap configuration issue. We mentioned the video footage, expert analysis suggesting flaps might not have been extended properly.
Right, and flaps are just essential for generating enough lift at low takeoff speeds.
So the implication is if they were set wrong, that could drastically reduce lift, cause a stall. Especially with those high temperatures in Ahemdabad, 100, 104 Fahrenheit.
High temperature reduces air density, which already makes takeoff performance more critical. Incorrect flaps would compound that issue significantly.
Now, there was an unverified ex-post claiming, someone saw a gap indicating flaps were set, but...
Yep. Exactly, unverified. The flight data recorder, the FDR, that will be definitive. It records the exact flap position. That'll tell them if it was human error, forgetting a step, or maybe a mechanical failure preventing deployment.
It really highlights how even sophisticated planes need absolute precision, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Basic configurations are fundamental.
Okay, another possibility, partly triggered by that survivor's report of a loud bang and flickering lights. Double engine failure.
Mm-hmm.
An ex-post even mentioned possible ram air turbine deployment, the RAT. That's the emergency backup power, right?
Correct. The RAT deploys automatically if there's a major loss of electrical power or hydraulic pressure, often associated with double engine failure. It suggests a major system issue.
And loss of thrust from both engines, well, that would certainly stop a climb, like the Miracle on the Hudson, though that had birds.
Exactly. But double engine failures are incredibly rare, extremely rare. And the 787 is designed, certified to fly safely on just one engine.
And Reuters apparently noted that a bird strike causing double engine failure isn't currently a key focus for investigators.
Right, so they'll rely heavily on the FDR, CDR for engine performance data, sounds, and meticulous debris analysis for any signs of damage or foreign objects like birds.
Which brings us to the next point, bird strike. You mentioned Ahmedabad Airport has a history.
It does. Our sources say 38 strikes in 2022-23, a 35% increase. So it's a known hazard there. A severe strike could potentially damage an engine, or maybe even both, though unlikely.
But the counterpoint is that CCTV footage reportedly shows no birds near the plane at takeoff, just dust clouds.
Correct. So while they'll meticulously check engine components for any bird remains and review the airport's wildlife management, it might be lower on the probability list based on that visual evidence. Still has to be ruled out, though.
Okay, then there's hydraulic or fuel system failure. There was some speculation, again, an ex-post about maybe a hydraulic issue or a fuel pump failing, maybe combined with something called vapor lock.
Vapor lock is where fuel gets too hot and turns to gas bubbles in the fuel lines, which can interrupt fuel flow. The speculation linked it to heat-soaking the plane sitting on the hot tarmac for hours before flight.
Right. It was 102, 104 degrees. So the idea is contaminated fuel or clogged lines starving the engines. And maybe the nearly full fuel tank, 125,000 liters, made it worse.
That's the theory. But it's highly speculative at this stage. The 787 has multiple redundant fuel systems. Fuel contamination is rare because of very strict checks. Investigators will be looking at fuel samples from the airport and the aircraft's maintenance records very closely.
Got it. And then, inevitably, you have to consider the human element. Incorrect thrust settings or pilot error.
Always a factor to examine in any investigation.
Again, speculation on X suggested maybe pilots selected the wrong engine thrust, didn't reach rotation speed, VR, the liftoff speed, in time on that long runway.
The implication being they effectively ran out of runway to achieve a safe climb, leading to the stall. While possible, you have to consider the crew's experience. Captain Sebarwal had 8,200 hours. That's substantial. Gross error is less likely, but never impossible.
And the counterpoint, again, is the survivor mentioning a blast and that possible R8 deployment, which leans more towards a mechanical or system failure.
Exactly. The CVR will be crucial here, listening to the cockpit discussions, checklists, callouts. The FDR will show exactly what thrust was commanded and what the engines delivered, plus all the pilot control inputs.
Okay, couple more possibilities. Maintenance issues. The plane was 11 years old, over 700 flights in the past year. Air India's maintenance procedures are naturally under scrutiny.
Standard procedure. Any potential for undetected mechanical issues, wear and tear, or missed inspection items has to be looked at. Maintenance logs will be key.
But it's a modern plane, lots of monitoring systems, and this specific airframe, VT-A&B, didn't have prior major incidents.
Correct. Balance is needed there. And then there's sabotage or external factors. A former pilot, Neil Hansford, apparently suggested sabotage may be linked to political tensions in Gujarat. Anti-terror experts are part of the investigation team.
So they're considering an intentional act, like a bomb or tampering.
It has to be considered, however unlikely it might seem without specific evidence. It's usually a secondary focus unless something points directly towards it. They'll examine wreckage for explosive residue, signs of tampering.
Right. And finally, environmental factors. We know it was hot, 100, 104 Fahrenheit. Light winds, good visibility otherwise.
That heat is the main environmental factor. As we said, it reduces air density, meaning the engines produce slightly less thrust, and the wings produce slightly less lift. You need more runway, more power.
Could that have made things worse if the plane was maybe heavily loaded or if something else was wrong, like the flaps?
It could exacerbate an existing problem, yes.
Yeah.
Reduce the margins for error. But the 787 is designed to operate in these hot and high conditions, and Ahmedabad's runway, 11,000 feet, is generally quite adequate.
So the FDR, again, is key there. To confirm takeoff weight, thrust settings, see how the environment actually impacted performance.
Precisely. It ties everything together.
Yeah.
So with all these threads, How do investigators actually start narrowing it down?
Well, it's that systematic elimination process you mentioned. Based on what we know now, several factors are already looking unlikely as the primary cause.
Okay.
Weather, for instance. The METAR reports, standard aviation weather reports, showed no major issues. Light winds, good visibility, not a weather-related crash in the typical sense.
Right. Seems clear.
Pilot inexperience isn't really a leading theory either. Both pilots qualified, Captain Sabharwal very experienced on type.
Agreed.
Aircraft age, 11 years old, yes, but for a modern, well-maintained 787, that's not considered old. And it's the first fatal crash for the model. Doesn't point to an age-related fleet issue.
No, not inherently.
And runway length, we discussed it. 11,000 feet is plenty for a 787, even in the heat.
Sufficient, yes. So by ruling these out, or at least downgrading their likelihood, investigators can focus resources on the more probable scenarios, like the flap configuration, engine issues, or potential system failures, using that black box data as the core evidence. It's how they methodically work through these complex puzzles.
Makes sense. Now, this tragedy, obviously, it rippled far beyond the investigation itself. The response from governments, the airline, internationally.
Yes, the broader impact.
Immediately, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the crash site and the hospital, met the survivor, the injured on the ground. That was June 13th.
A significant gesture.
Gujarat's Chief Minister, Bhupendra Patel, coordinated rescue efforts on what he called a war footing. Air India acted quickly, too. Set up a passenger hotline, arranged relief flights for families.
Essential support steps.
They also offered compensation, 1 crore rupees, which is about 86,000 pounds, to families of the deceased passengers and crew, and committed to covering hospital bills, rebuilding that damaged medical college hospital.
Taking responsibility for the immediate aftermath, yeah.
Yeah. Tata Group, Air India's parent company, expressed condolences, pledged support. And the civil hospital in Ahmedabad set up a DNA verification system to help with the difficult task of identifying victims.
That identification process is always harrowing, but so necessary for the families.
And the international response was also swift. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the Foreign Office, providing consular support. A multi-faith vigil was held in London for the British victims.
Important solidarity.
Even Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif offered condolences, despite, the political tensions.
A notable moment.
And in London, at Trooping the Colour on June 14th, they held a 1-minute silence. Senior royals wore black armbands at King Charles's request, a very public acknowledgement.
Shows the depth of the connection with so many British nationals involved.
UK High Commissioner Lindy Cameron confirmed support, and major Indian insurers relaxed claim procedures to get financial aid to families faster.
Good to see practical support measures being taken quickly.
But the significance of this crash, it really can't be overstated, can it?
No, it's huge. First, as we said, the very first Boeing 787 fatal crash. First hull loss, first fatalities since it entered service back in 2011.
A major milestone, sadly.
For an aircraft model with over 1,100 flying globally, that's a critical event for Boeing, for operators, for regulators worldwide. It shatters that perfect safety record.
And it's one of the deadliest crashes in decades, one of India's worst since that Air India Flight 182 bombing in 1985, and among the deadliest globally in recent years, too.
Puts it in grim perspective.
And it adds to Boeing's challenges, doesn't it? After the 737 MAX issues, and there was that 2024 whistleblower claim about 787 assembly, though that wasn't deemed an immediate safety risk.
True. It brings renewed scrutiny onto Boeing's manufacturing and quality control processes. Fairly or unfairly, the spotlight is back on them.
And for India, it comes just as the country is really pushing to become a major global aviation hub. This inevitably raises questions, about safety oversight, infrastructure, managing rapid growth.
It certainly does. It's striking how the global community rallied, but also how this single event just intensifies scrutiny on the manufacturer, on the airline, on the national aviation system.
Yeah.
It's not just about this Dreamliner. It prompts this global reevaluation, potentially, of procedures, maybe even design tolerances, especially in challenging environments. It really begs the question, what lasting lessons will the industry take away from this? Especially as aviation keeps expanding so fast in hubs like India.
So wrapping up this deep dive on Air India Flight 171, it reveals this incredibly tragic event caused by just a rapid sequence of failures, it seems, leaving the pilots virtually no time.
That seems to be the emerging picture, yes. Extremely rapid.
The investigation is still early, but it's meticulously focusing on that complex interplay. Flap configuration, engine performance, hydraulic, fuel systems, maintenance, environment, all potentially interconnected.
You're right. And the recovery and analysis of both black boxes, it's just paramount. That data will be absolutely instrumental in pinpointing the precise cause or likely chain of causes. Mechanical failure, human error, external factor. It's all still on the table officially.
Yeah.
Until that preliminary report comes out, and even then, the final report is what matters.
Yeah.
It's just vital to be patient, temper speculation with the actual evidence as it emerges.
Yeah.
Understand the painstaking work involved.
This disaster really does underscore those ongoing challenges in aviation safety, especially near dense urban areas like Ahmedabad. Highlights the constant need for robust maintenance, thorough training, effective wildlife management, all of it.
It's a complex system with many layers of safety, but this is a tragic reminder that gaps can still occur.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, it means that even as flying gets safer and safer overall statistically, every single incident, painful as it is, serves as this crucial, undeniable lesson for the entire global aviation community.
Learning from tragedy is unfortunately part of how safety improves.
We await the investigation's full findings. They'll be absolutely vital for future prevention. And as you reflect on all this, maybe consider this. In our interconnected world, with huge pressure for more flights, faster travel, how do we balance that demand for rapid expansion with the absolute, non-negotiable imperative of maintaining the highest safety standards, especially when faced with unforeseen complexities like this?
That's the fundamental tension.